Welcome back to another episode of the Podgecast, folks. I'm joined by an incredible guest, Casey Hughes. Casey has spent over 15 years at the intersection of behavioral science and human-centered design, leading groundbreaking programs in chronic disease management at companies like Stanford Medicine, Apple, and Fresh Try. Casey is also the founder of Adapt Sciences, a behavioral science consulting company. And today we are diving in to the power of habits, the role of technology in shaping behavior, and the future of health with tools, many tools such as GLP-1 and other specific health tools as well. Casey, it is great to have you here. How are you?
I am doing so well. Thank you for that kind introduction. I've seen your show on for quite some time now, and it's just too early California time for me to join. But I do go and listen to your talks, and I'm just honored that you have me on today.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And that does cross my mind. I know I'm on at 8 a.m. Eastern, usually on Noon Vibe, which is the wee hours of the morning for people who are over on the West Coast. But I appreciate the time you take to listen back, even when it's not live.
Absolutely. And if my husband had his way, I would become a morning person. He has these grand ideas for me, but I talk about this on my show. Sometimes habits are pretty deep. I'm a night owl, and there's actually been some interesting research around that, but topic for another day.
It might very well be a topic for today, and I do just want to, if it's okay with you, just to jump right in and like you mentioned habits already, right? And habits are just such a really important part of our health in particular, and I know you have a lot to say about them. Like, why do you think habits are so important for long-term health and well-being?
Yeah. So, we've as a society, we've kind of gone through this habit craze, right? You see the word habit plastered on every app. You see it on books in all the bookstores. You see people talking about it on social media. It's become a trendy word. Unfortunately, because of the excitement around habits over the past decade, we now have a lot of misinformation around habits, and this is a habit, that's a habit. And in reality, many things we discuss are actually not habits, right? We talk about going to the gym and doing new workouts. That's actually likely not a habit. For those of us very interested in habit science, why we care so deeply about this is because the way that we approach changing our behavior should be determined by what type of behavior it is. And I talk a lot about habits because the truth is, much of our day is governed by our habitual responses and our habitual patterns, things that we do very subconsciously without much thought. Every time you walk in a room, do you flip the light switch on? When you walk out of the room, do you flip your light switch off? When you hear someone talking about a certain subject, does your mind go to an automatic response? When you think about yourself and you meeting your goals or not meeting your goals, do you automatically go towards self-labeling or these automatic negative thought patterns? There is so much to consider in the world of habits. And why I like educating people on this topic is because the process of habit formation, habit strengthening, habit weakening, can take quite some time. And it takes certain strategies and methods that other types of behaviors don't require. And it's important to know the difference.
Yeah, it kind of gets me on to a question like, what does make a habit truly sustainable then?
Oh, truly sustainable. So what essentially turns a behavior into a habit is automaticity. How automatic is this behavior? There's many different characteristics of habits, but behavioral automaticity is one that we really focus on. Because when you're looking at behaviors and deciding, is this a strong habit, right? Is this particular behavior of drinking water with lunch, right? Is this something I do automatically without much conscious thought, without much motivation, without much effort? That's what we want to get to when we build habits. We want to turn behaviors into actions that become so automatic we don't really have to think about them. a big reason that habits are so beneficial for us is because they don't require a whole lot of motivation. Think about when you're starting to change your behavior. Okay, maybe you want to cut back on snack foods, or you want to increase the amount of fruit that you're eating. It requires a lot of motivation up front, right? If you just love those Cheez-Its or those crackers, those cakes, whatever it is that you eat, if you really love them, and then all of a sudden you say, well, I'm not going to eat them anymore, you're going up against a force in your mind that is quite strong, and it requires a whole lot of motivation to do that thing. If you are not someone who likes taking the stairs, right? Maybe you walk to work or you get to work every day and you see stairs or an elevator and you really don't like what it feels like to walk up those stairs. It requires motivation to do so. Now, what happens when you repeat that behavior over and over and over again in the same context, and your brain starts to say, oh, well, this is just what I do, right? Motivation is not required so much anymore. Sure, you might huff and puff a little bit, but it's not going to feel as demanding as it once was. Because once behaviors become automatic, our mind almost treats them as the default response, right? It treats them as, oh, this is just what we do. An analogy I give sometimes is think about, you're in a forest, right? And you kind of come to a fork in the road. You see one path that is well worn, right? All the bushes and the trees have been cleared out. It's a very well-defined path, easy to walk. The ground is smooth. You're not going to trip on rocks or stumble. And then you look to the right and you see this path that's all weedy. You got to, take out your shovel and kind of get those weeds out of the way, move the sticks out of the way. There's a bunch of gravel you could trip over. Which one are you going to take, right? You're going to take the trail that's been walked thousands of times, the easy path. That's how our brain treats behaviors when it has choices between doing something really difficult or really default, automatic, and easy. When it comes to building habits, the tools that we pick out of our tool belt to whack down those, tree branches and weeds to carve new paths, that takes a lot of motivation and time and effort. And it all depends on what tools you use in your tool belt to do so, right? And that's what we talk about on my show a lot is mindset, because mindset is a tool, right? The way you approach change, the way that you think about yourself while you are trying to change, all of these things really help determine how successful you'll be.
It was interesting when you gave the example earlier around trying to cut out particular foods. It just got me thinking of certain concepts and like the whole idea of punishment to achieve a goal versus maybe there's a flip side of having reinforcement, which could make life a little bit easier. I think if we kind of punish ourselves and maybe take things out of our lives, it's probably harder to sustain that habit long term.
It is. And it's a really important balance to consider when you want to make changes to your lifestyle. Uh, do you want to focus on things that you can add in and potentially replace on the long term? Or are you going to focus on taking things out? When you focus on taking things out, it is typically a whole lot harder. And I often recommend that people begin with adding things in or making easy swaps. I had someone on my show, Craig. I think it was you, Craig. I don't know if you're listening today. But this person was someone who would eat Skittles on his drive home every single day. And he said, it was just my habit. I ate Skittles on my drive home. But you know what I did? I swapped out those Skittles for grapes. The grapes, they're also a circle, right? They're also sweet, but they're going to be a whole lot healthier for me than Skittles. And so with this simple swap, the brain was like, okay, we're still doing this sweet thing. We're still doing this snack thing. We're, same thing on the drive home. Now, of course, I did caution that maybe eating grapes, which is a choking hazard while driving, that's a whole nother story. But we're just going to focus on the swap part here, which is we replaced same thing, a food for another food, same context, driving home. And it likely made that habit change a whole lot easier than if he was to say to his brain, okay, we're just going to take out the Skittles completely. Right?
Yeah, and just a disclaimer, there were no grapes harmed in them throughout this story. Casey, from your experience, are there any common misconceptions about habits and health that you've encountered in your work?
Mm. So oftentimes habit change is oversimplified. Okay. I'm not going to bash some of the popular books that have come out. I will say, however, that the process is wildly oversimplified. Like, follow these 3 steps and you're going to change your habits. That is not actually how it works in the real world. The real world of habit formation or habit weakening, right? Trying to reduce certain habits. It is a wild ride that is filled with setbacks and highs and lows. I want to take a quick moment to completely debunk a very common misperception about habits, which is that it takes 21 days to form a habit. What we have 134 people listening right now. If anybody has heard that myth and believed that myth, you're not alone, right? Just raise your hand. Even I did as a young, coach and behavioral scientist. Here's what I found out. I dug into what is the origin of that 21 days to build a habit myth. Well, decades ago, I think it was in the 70s, but decades ago, okay, there was a plastic surgeon who was performing procedures like facelifts and nose jobs and other things on his clients. And what he found was that it took on average 21 days for them to be accustomed to their new look. And so out of this epiphany that he had, came this myth that it takes 21 days to form a habit. Now, research has completely debunked this. There are some studies that say it takes between 60 to 70 days. Some studies that say it takes all the way to 250 to 300 days to really strengthen a behavior to the point that it can be considered a habit. So what does that mean for us? It means that we need to give ourselves some grace, some understanding, some kindness when we go back to the chips, when we miss out on walking before work, when we drink the soda instead of the water, right? We have to give ourselves some grace and understand that if we have had certain habitual patterns for decades, right? Maybe you've been eating the same food since you were 12. Maybe you have had the same after work routine of sitting on the couch for 4 decades. Give your brain a break and say, you know what, brain, you are trying really hard right now. I appreciate you. If you relapse into your old ways of operating, I understand that's because you're a little bit confused right now. I'm trying to switch things up on you. If we were to respond to our setbacks in those ways, do you know how many more people would be successful with changing their habits? Many, many, many. But what society has told us is no, if you have enough willpower, you're going to change that habit in a week. You're going to lose that 10 pounds this month. You're going to go from never walking to running a marathon, right? We have these ideals that are just completely bogus in my mind because it's not what brain science tells us. And so, what I really want people to walk away from this episode with is just be kinder to yourself and know that it's a very normal and expected process to have relapses, to have setbacks when you're going through change. And the harder you are on yourself, the more difficult it will be for you to make those long-term changes and bounce back from those setbacks.
That concept of willpower, I always find super fascinating because it's kind of societally what we're told, right? We have to work hard, we have to do it for ourselves and kind of pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and go, go, go. Whereas in reality, it's not a straight line graph, right? It's going to be ups and downs throughout your journey as well. And yeah, we don't exactly promote that or kind of make people aware. So then oftentimes when negatives do happen or setbacks do happen, your first inkling is probably to say like, why am I like this? Like everyone else is able to do it. Why can't I do it? And that's where the difficulty, I think, comes in.
Yeah. Just one more thing I'll add. A very common example that I speak of often is here's a good way to tell where your mindset's at right now. think about what your goal is right now. Okay. I'll give you an example. Maybe you want to increase your steps. Okay. I hear this all the time. Oh, I increased my step goal to 10,000 steps a day, which we can also talk about. But here's what I'd ask you. When it's 8 p.m. and you're looking at your steps for the day, okay, you're about to take your watch off. If that step number says 8,600, and that is, I don't know, maybe 3,000 more steps than you took yesterday, but it's not quite that 10,000 step goal you had. What is the first thought that pops into your mind? Is it, gosh, I failed my goal again. Gosh, I didn't hit that. What's wrong with me? Why can't I ever meet my goals? Is that the thought that pops in your mind? Or is it, I'm really proud of myself. 8,600 steps. Whoa, that's more than the average US adult, right? That's a significant amount of steps. I'm proud of you, Casey. You did really good today. You put a lot of effort in. What is your response? Most people I ask that question, they're like, oh, it's definitely the first, right? I see this arbitrary number I've selected for myself, 10,000 steps, 8.783 hours of sleep, whatever it is. And we don't meet that. And then we label ourselves failure. We
Yeah.
label ourselves not good enough, label ourselves not meeting goals. And what does that tell our brain, right? Here's what I tell people all the time. I have a lot of stuff I tell people all the time, but this is definitely high up on the list. It is your brain listens to you, okay? What you say out loud, what you say in your mind, your brain will start to believe over time. What you say out of your mouth will significantly influence how your brain decides to approach change. The next time you're in a similar position, your brain is going to say, okay, the last time I was here, seeing this, hearing that word goals, entering a new weight loss program, starting a new medication, what happened? Right? Did I do good? Did I do bad? Was it dangerous? Was it helpful? What happened? And it's going to go back and review those memories of your prior experiences to help determine your motivation levels to move forward. How many people have listening today? We have 157 right now. I see it increasing every minute. How many of you have started a new weight loss program or started a new mental well-being program, mindset program, whatever it is, and then after a few days you're like, oh no, I'm not doing this same old thing again. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to succeed. And then you quit. You stop showing up to your coaching sessions. You stop going to the program, right? It's your brain trying to protect you because of what you told it the last time you tried. So these are really important things to be considering, because what we tell ourselves is going to influence our future self.
Yeah, I think that internal narrative piece is like super important, and like just like you said, that what we actually say to ourselves internally can almost manifest in a way. How about you have the internal piece that you control, but what role does environment play in shaping or breaking habits then?
A big one, a big one. I'm actually funny you asked that. I am about to launch a study in about a few weeks on this particular subject. What are the social and physical environmental influencing factors on weight loss success? A lot of previous research has shown, and this is where that kind of willpower issue, gets debunked. A lot of previous research has shown that our physical environment, so our access to safe walking trails, our access to fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as our social environment, the people around us, the people in our family, our friend group, what we read on social media, right? All of those can influence how we behave, the decisions that we make, and the actions that we take. I have found, and so has research, that social influences are extremely significant. I have coached many people in my career, and I have heard this over and over again. When I say, tell me who supports you in this change, right? And they're like, nobody. Actually, they're making fun of me for it, right? That's what I hear. And do you know how sad that is? That just breaks my heart. But it is such a powerful influencing force. if you are part of a family, right? Say who's been, uh, eating a certain way for many decades, it's part of your culture, right? I've had many people I've coached who's like, yeah, fried chicken and really heavy potato dishes. That's just kind of what we eat for dinner. And there's not a whole lot of vegetables. And when I've tried to suggest adding in a vegetable for dinner, I've been made fun of. And that's a really complicated thing to work with. Trying to change behavior when you have social forces opposing you brings you into a whole nother ball game, and it causes you to be a bit creative. I will give you a case study of someone I was working with recently, who was going to bring their own dish to a Thanksgiving dinner and had some flashback from that. So they were trying to lose weight. They had tried for many years and they were unsuccessful. We looked at some history, we looked at some factors, and this client of mine came to the decision that they were going to try to take out dairy because maybe dairy was inflammatory for some of the conditions that they had. Well, took out dairy and lost 20 pounds. Almost just, it started melting off. Okay. And I will say, going dairy free is not going to be the answer to all of you listening who want to lose weight. Nutrition advice should be highly personalized. I'm just using this as an example. So she lost a bunch of weight and was so motivated to continue going with this dairy free and said, I'm going to make a few dishes that are dairy free so that I don't have to disturb anyone else on Thanksgiving. I want you to still enjoy the foods that you love. I'll just make myself a little dish, the sweet potatoes and the stuffing that are dairy free. Well, she received so much pushback from her family. Well, why? It's just one day. And they were so unsupportive of her. And we had to have 2 sessions just talking through that. And I reminded her, as I often remind people, that you do not owe anybody an explanation for what food you put in your body. I'm just going to say that out loud, right? You do not need to seek permission for what foods you put in your body. Autonomy. Autonomy is absolutely critical, and it is a basic human need, right? We want to have choice over what we do. And another thing I tell people is if others have a problem with the foods that you choose to eat or the way that you decide to make changes to your behavior to improve or better your health, I don't mean to be hard here, but I don't know how else to describe this, is that's maybe a them problem, something they need to work through, right? It's not really a you problem. You are doing something to better your health. And as long as you're being respectful and kind in communicating that choice, I'm not a believer that you need to bend to the will of other people just to please them or make them feel better about themselves, right? And so this is a really tricky thing, and I know it's something many people struggle with, but that would be my general recommendations I give.
Yeah, I feel sometimes people have a real difficulty. We always hear the like difficulty with change, but if someone is trying to, say, build better habits, in that example that you said, the people around them can actually find that disturbing that someone is trying to change, but they have this character image and personality traits built up like in their own mind. It might not
Mhm.
necessarily be the person, but because that person is trying to change, there's a bit of a dissonance there, and they're kind of struggling
Mhm.
with that, which is probably why they're trying to tell the person to just eat the same foods that they're eating and stay the same. Like
Mhm.
I have you built up in my mind, like you are that person, you can't change, type of thing.
Right, right, absolutely. And oftentimes, and when I say it's a them problem, not a you problem, it's not to create a dichotomy or not to say it's you versus them. It's more that, hey, we have to be responsible for our own actions. And if another person is not willing or ready to make changes to their behavior, it doesn't mean that you can't. It doesn't mean that you can't initiate change. And what I have found over the years is that when people stand firm and saying, no, okay, friend, okay, family member, I appreciate your comments on my eating habits, but this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to try. When those other people start observing and seeing evidence, right, that their health is improving, their well being is improving, it sometimes gives them the courage or the motive or the boost in motivation that they feel to initiate changes of their own. So it can have a really positive effect when people stay confident in their choices.
Yeah, you have to be kind of self-assured in the actions that you're taking as well.
Right.
Casey, I do want to get on to chatting to you around technology and kind of behavioral change. Before I do, just a bit around habits. What's the one habit that most people think matters, but is actually a distraction from real health change?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. And I don't know that I have an answer to that because I would say in the range of habits that we often discuss, many are influential. And sometimes the ones that we don't think are influential for our condition can be the most influential. And maybe you're asking a different question, but I'm going to just build on this for a second because I think it's a really important point. There are, let me remember the name of this. Have to and want to goals. I don't know. Have you heard those terms before?
I've heard those terms. I'm just curious to know where you're going to go with it.
Where I'm going with this. Okay. So many people on New Vibes, so many people even listening to this podcast, right? Many people have gone to the doctor and been told something. Oh, you're at risk for high blood pressure. Oh, you're at risk for diabetes. Oh, you have too much weight. You need to lose weight. Oh, your mental well-being is not where it needs to. So we're told this information, and many people often default to have to goals. Okay. Have to goals are I have to do this because, right? I have to cut out carbs because I'm at risk for diabetes. I have to quit sodium because I am at risk for high blood pressure. I have to stop eating chips because I need to lose weight. Have to goals can appear essential, but the problem with that is that they often direct us to make habit changes that we're not bought into yet. And the quality of this motivation is superficial, right? The quality of our motivation to cut out the sodium, to get rid of the chips, to lower our carb intake is because we feel contingent guilt, contingent self-esteem. We want to please our doctor, please our spouse, please our coworker that gave us this recipe. Our motivation is so superficial that it's going to break and snap a few weeks in. So when you ask me the question of, what are some habits that people should, maybe focus on and aren't that good for their health? I would say they're habits that stem from have to goals. Now, is reducing sodium good for hypertension? Absolutely. Should people diagnosed with diabetes consider their carb intake? Absolutely. However, what I want people to get to are want to goals. I want to lower my sodium because I'm at risk for hypertension. I want to consider lowering my simple carb intake because I'm at risk for diabetes. I want to cut out those chips because I want to lose weight and I want to protect my health. And oftentimes, people don't start at those want to goals when they really think about what their very significant internal needs are. I'm going to bring this full circle here by giving you an example. I was working with someone who went to the doctor and had a blood panel come back that said their A1C was too high and they were at significant risk for type 2 diabetes. Their doctor said to them, well, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Cut out all sugars. I need you to lower your carb intake. I need you to eat more fruits and vegetables, increase your water, have more protein. And there was about 5 other goals on this list. And she came to coaching and we spent an hour just talking. And I said, tell me about your current habits. Tell me about your lifestyle. And she talked to me for an hour. And you know what we found out? We found out that some of those root causes for her eating habits was suboptimal work-life balance, suboptimal relationship with her husband at home, and not enough self-care. So what would the, no offense, traditional dietitian or what would the traditional kind of health education program say? Okay, you're coming into my program. Here are your goals. Lower your sodium, lower your carbs. You know what I said to her? for the next few weeks, let's work on your work-life balance. Let's work on your self-care. What can you do to improve your relationship with your spouse? Could you guys sit at the dinner table and have a conversation? Could you put your phones away? What could you do? And you know what? We did that for 4 weeks before even touching those other habits. And in those 4 weeks, she got to a much better place emotionally, psychologically. And no, I don't provide psychotherapy for anybody who's raising a flag here. But she got to a much better place. And in that time, she was like, you know what? I'm ready. I'm now ready to start thinking about how I can lower my sodium. I want to do that. I want to do it because I don't want, to increase my blood pressure. I want to cut down on the carbs because I want to lower my A1C. And those had to have two goals that started out 4 weeks prior, naturally turned into want to goals with motivation that was fueled by interest and curiosity and challenge and enjoyment, right? That's what behavior change is. It's not just have to goals and have to habits. Behavior change is about aligning intrinsically with what you need and working on that one step at a time.
Yeah, it sounds like you're creating like a foundation or I don't know, do you want to call it like a mindset framework or just some sort of deep rooted foundation for this person to be able to do everything else outside of that then.
That's right. That's right. It's health is holistic. We know after decades of research that mind and body are not disconnected. We know that your daily thoughts can influence your physical health. We know that your stress levels can influence your physical health. It is important anytime you're considering making changes to your lifestyle to look at your lifestyle holistically and deeply understand what your needs as a human being are. Do you need more respect? Do you need to be in a caring environment? Do you need to be emotionally supported? Right? That's why coaching is so beneficial for so many people because we were just talking about a lack of social support and what that can do to the habit formation process. Well, we didn't get a chance to go into, well, what happens when people in your life aren't supportive of changes for you? We have to restructure the environment sometimes. What does that mean? It means we have to add in people, add in groups that will support us. Why do you think New Vibe was born, right? I think it's partially for this reason, because there are many people across the country who are not supported in changing their behaviors. And wow, here's an app that will do that. Here is an app with thousands of people just like you, making changes just like you, who want to congratulate you and have your back and be there to provide you with wisdom when you need it. It's a beautiful thing.
I agree. There's a real need. You can see even through the new Vibe app that there is a real need for connection and there is a real need for community as well. And a lot of people who are on the platform. This isn't a plug, by the way, for those listening on Spotify or YouTube, but a lot of people feel really involved and just feel really part of a community from being on Noon Vibe.
Yes.
Let's go in a totally different direction now, Casey.
Let's do it.
There, there is just a lot of excitement around technology and just its potential to help us change behavior in particular. But for you, like, where do you think the line is between helpful technology and then perhaps becoming over reliant on it as well?
Yeah, I have to take a deep breath here to approach this. I'm going to approach this as both a scientist. I'm going to approach this as somebody who cares deeply about other humans. And I'm going to approach this as just an everyday human being who has seen the effects of health technology. So, for those of you who don't know me very well, my main job is developing apps and digital health programs that almost always include health technology. I've been doing this now, as Podge mentioned, for about 15 years, and it has become really central to my view on the future of public health. I think technology is extraordinary. I think that it can help us personalize our approach to behavior change in a way that we couldn't do before. Now, with that said, I also think that as an industry, we've gone a bit overboard. there is a saying in our field called the quantified self. And it represents that we have now virtually quantified every aspect of us. Um, there are benefits and there are consequences of that. I'm going to start by sharing where I think health technology can be extremely beneficial and where I have seen it really change lives. The first is in helping us understand our current patterns, our current habits, our current behaviors, our current routines. A lot of times when people come into coaching and they want to make a change, they want to change their eating habits, they want to change their sleep habits, their physical activity habits. They're really excited to do so, but they actually don't know where they're starting at. Think about it, right? Before the Apple Watch or Fitbit came out, we didn't really know how many steps we took today unless you wore one of those clunky pedometers on your ankle or on your belt loop. And the average person didn't do that. We didn't know. We didn't know how many steps we took. We didn't really have a baseline for us to say, well, where do we go from here? When that came out, it was almost like this revolution where we said, oh my goodness, I now know I'm averaging about 2,000 steps per day, and I could probably do more. I now see that I'm pretty you know, pretty sedentary between the hours of 9 to 5. And maybe that's contributing to this ache I feel in my back. Maybe that's contributing to the slow metabolism that I feel during that time, or some of my gut health issues. It has been absolutely phenomenal for raising awareness of our patterns and habits. On the nutrition side of things, I have many people who have said to me, okay, I need to cut down on saturated fat. But first of all, what is saturated fat? What's it in? What part of my dietary pattern is contributing to my saturated fat intake? When they have used food logs and food diaries, right? They have said, oh, I see now that 6-ounce burger is giving me, with cheese, like 14, 15 grams of saturated fat. Wow, that's a lot. And there's these aha moments that can come from health technology and our ability to utilize it to raise awareness of some of our behavioral patterns that we may not have understood before. Another benefit is tracking our progress. If we wear, a watch or a pedometer of some sort, and we start increasing our steps, we start making progress, we have evidence that our behavior is changing. We can see the trends, we can see maybe how certain life circumstances or contexts affected our progress and behavior change, and it gives us information on how to move forward. If we see on the scale that, our increase in weight has aligned with our decrease in steps, that gives us some clues about where to go. So there is a lot of benefit of health technology. Now, there is the other side to consider, which is human intuition. I have seen over the past 15 years, people lose their sense of intuition when they become overly dependent on health technology. I have seen people who track their food every single day, every single meal for 3 years, and they lose weight and they keep the weight off. And then they say, you know what? I just had a baby. I had another baby. I have kids running around the house. I'm working again. I'm so busy. I don't have time to track my food. And what happens? They gain weight. Because this whole time, this whole 3 years, they haven't been looking at their food. They haven't been using their mindful senses of, okay, like how much is on my plate? What does this taste like? Do I feel full or do I not feel full? They haven't been using those senses. They've been using the log to tell them if they met their calorie goal, not if they're full and satisfied. And the weight comes back. They lose their progress. Now, some scientists will say, well, people should just track forever. That's what some scientists would say. Yes, it is true. Across studies, we see that logging your food, keeping track of your food is a predictor of long-term weight loss success. However, do you think that's potentially widening disparity gaps for people who don't have time to track every single meal, can't afford the technology to track every single meal, or use the fancy new AI software to snap pictures? And right, I'm also a public health leader, so I have to consider the unintended consequences of health technology, which is why I'm a middle ground person. I think that technology can be extremely useful. I want to make it available for all people, and I want to teach them how to use it wisely. I want to teach them how to use it in as a supplement to their intuition, as a supplement to their use of executive functioning, critical reasoning, mindful awareness, right? We have our bodies, which are controlled by our brain, the most complex and amazing system in the universe. There is no, in my opinion, there is no AI, there is no computer system that will ever uh, outdo the human brain. We don't even know everything there is to know about the human brain and how it works. It is so complex and so vast. Just side note here, for those of you interested in neuroscience and how the brain works, there's a widely published scientist named Lisa Feldman Barrett, Dr. Lisa Barrett, Feldman Barrett, and she has written a few really easy to read books on this subject. But, it's true. We have an indispensable tool in our heads that can help us guide our behavior. And I don't want to see the human race lose that. I don't want to see the human race lose our ability to look at a plate of food and say, okay, I see some greens on there. That looks really healthy. That looks really delicious. And then as food is entering our body, right, there are hormones designed to tell you if you are full and if your body stores have been filled up. Now, in cases like obesity and severe obesity, sometimes those hormone levels get a little wacky and we get something called leptin resistance where we actually can't tell when we're full. There are absolutely cases like that where, again, technology can be really helpful in helping us to get back in tune with what is enough food. But for many people, when you feel full. Another consequence of overly tracking is when people override their internal signals because of what the food log tells them. For those of you listening, if you log your food, how many times, I used to do this, how many times did you feel so full after dinner and you felt content, but your food log said you had 300 extra calories? So what did you do? You're like, well, I can eat that cookie. I can have that ice cream. I can have that extra serving because I have 300 calories left, right? How many people have done that? But our body's like, no, you're actually good. You're actually full, right? And we say, no, our technology knows better, and we override. And then that leads to a whole bunch of bad stuff, like messing with your metabolism. So again, it's really critical to not become overly dependent on these technologies.
So, Casey, my question leads in. We want to create a sense of balance. We want to be able to use them and understand them in the right way. Like, how can people foster self-reliance in a world that is increasingly relies on tech solutions, it seems?
I think we're still figuring that out. I still think we're figuring that out because I'm writing an article on this right now because it's so top of mind to me. Is our world has become overly convenient. We cherish convenience as a human species, right? For all of history, we've been making things more convenient and more convenient and more convenient. In doing that, I argue that it actually has led to declines in certain aspects of our well-being. So I would ask you, if there are things that you do that are more convenient for you, but actually detract from your physical or emotional or mental well-being, those might be prime targets for setting up some boundaries and changing some habits around. I'll give you an example of myself. Two things that I caught myself over this past year. Actually, three things. The first is grocery delivery. Okay. 10 years ago, I would tell my husband, I would tell my friends, I find so much peace in a grocery store. I love going down the aisles. I love looking at different foods. I like seeing new products that come out. It genuinely brought me joy.
Yeah.
It was like my wind down time. I'd go to the grocery store, I'd just kind of tune out and I'd do my thing. That's not for everybody, right? Some of you listeners are like, I
I,
hate going to the grocery store. Is that
I'm
you?
the exact Ashling. Yeah, she's like, why are you just walking around? I just enjoy it. I just like doing it. Yeah, yeah. So I enjoy it as
Yeah.
well.
So, right. So I used to love it. Brought me so much joy, so much well-being. Then grocery delivery came out. And I was like, oh, okay. So between meetings, I can just go on my phone, or when the kids are just sitting down coloring, I can go on my phone. And I built a habit around that. And what happened? I actually lost some self-care time. I lost an opportunity of doing something that brought me joy. And my kids constantly saw me on on my phone. But I was like, oh, I made an excuse. Oh, but I'm ordering groceries. But what do they see? They say their mom not paying attention to them, right? And that was a significant negative consequence of, sure, it was much more convenient for me, but it actually detracted from my well-being, and it detracted from my kids' well-being. Now, I'll give you a polar opposite example. My grandmother is in her 80s. It's very difficult for her to walk anymore, and grocery delivery has been a saving grace for her, right? It took away pain and it took away discomfort. That convenience was good for her. So this is not a one size fits all issue, right? It is all about what is convenient and beneficial for you. I think there has to be two criteria there. Is it convenient? Great. Is it beneficial? Answer that. Now, another example. I formed some stoplight habits. Okay. I was the preacher of all preachers of don't use your phone when you're driving. Don't. Why would you do that? That's so irrational. Why would you ever pull out your phone? And you know what I started doing? I said, my brain found a way around that because I was so, I don't want to use the word, and I'm not going to use that word. I was so compelled to use my phone and seek out information. I was anticipating, oh, did I get that email? Oh, did this person write back to me? Oh, can I just quickly do this to save time? It's so convenient that every time I hit a red light, I would reach for my phone. And I wasn't even aware of it until maybe a year ago when I said, I formed a habit. I have formed a very, very bad habit of at every red light, as soon as my brake hits, I reach for my phone and I check my messages. Oh, but I'm not driving, Casey. Ooh, you're following your rule. No, that is baloney,
Mhm.
right? But this desire, this yearning for convenience and quick hits and dopamine hits of that my phone can provide me drove me to some really unhelpful habitual patterns. And so, you know, I like to go on tailspins. You've probably learned this about me now, Podge, but what I will say is to answer your original question is how do you know when to use technology and when not to use technology in different aspects of your life? You have to ask and become aware of the answer to, is this benefiting my health and well-being and the people I love, or is it detracting from it? And sometimes you can't find those answers without a qualified professional. I will be very honest, right? Coaches wouldn't exist if behavior change was so easy to do on your own. Therapists wouldn't exist if improving your mental health wasn't listen, I'm a behavioral scientist. I've been doing this for 15 years. I have many academic degrees and a whole bunch of messy life experience. And I still have a therapist, right, who I see that helps me work through some things I don't understand. I had a therapy session 2 weeks ago where I had the biggest aha moment. We were talking about, and I'm very open for those listening, and I promise I'll pause in a second, Podge. You know, I was telling my therapist, I said, I just have some issues sometimes with control. I feel like, and of course, for those of you who know me, know I have OCD, so this plays into it. But I feel compelled sometimes to say, "Oh, you should cook it this way," or "Oh, you should do it this way." And I said, "I'm going to stop doing that." And she took me through an exercise where I became so aware of the root cause of that stemmed back to many decades ago, to things I had experienced as a child, and I was like, "Oh, whoa, that is incredible." And I literally had the biggest aha moment. So just know that if you can't always figure things out yourself, that's okay, because there are people available who are trained and ready to help you do so.
Yeah, I think that's such a really good point. And a lot of stuff now, as you said, it's just been ingrained in habits. Like so much of what you spoke about, I was able to relate to, especially if you have a free moment, you're probably picking up your phone or scrolling on social media. Like
Mm.
it's just become such an ingrained habit for us that sometimes it does take that conversation with a professional to be able to elicit that from you and get that aha moment that it seems like you got.
Mhm. That's right.
Casey, just given time, let's go again in another slide. It's still technically a tool, but there is a lot of buzz about GLP-1s at the moment as a tool for weight management. So maybe we can explore and explain how these drugs work from a biological sense, but also why it's just critical to address the psychological aspect of behavior change as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad. I'm really glad you brought this up because it's a really pertinent issue for the 60 to 70% of Americans who are trying to lose weight at any given time. That estimate is a few years outdated, but it could even be more, right? We know that about 42% of US adults have obesity, which is currently defined by a slightly flawed measure of BMI of 30 or above. Overweight is 25 or above for certain ethnic populations. It's actually 23 or above for overweight. So over the past few years, we've had this movement of GLP-1s. They've come out, and everybody is jumping on this bandwagon. Why? Because a lot of people benefit from them. A lot of people lose a whole bunch of weight when they use them. A lot of people who have been struggling for a very long time are now able to lose weight. Obesity, we are learning about obesity more and more every single day. And I'm going to take this moment to also say, if you're someone who has obesity, or if you are someone who cares for people with obesity, let's take the word obese out of your vocabulary. I often correct people with this, and because it was used for so long, or I'm obese, or this person is obese. We don't say that anymore. That's so stigmatizing, right? If someone had influenza, would you say, "Oh, you're influenza"? No, who would say that, right? Obesity is a clinical condition that people have. Okay, so we'll just say that. Now, to reduce stigma, we have come to, we vocally say, hey, for some people, obesity is a metabolic condition that they became at risk for when they were in the womb. For some of you listening who have obesity, it is very likely that you became at risk for it when you were in the womb because of your mother's cardiometabolic health, because of insulin levels that circulated, in your mother's body while you were in the womb. We know that very clearly. There are biological determinants of obesity that start at the very beginning of life. Now, with that said, because of these biological predispositions to obesity, we know that there are biological agents that can maybe help mitigate some of those issues and help to make the process of weight loss easier. GLP-1 medications are one of those tools. Now, why we have to be careful. Okay, so GLP-1 is it is a hormone involved in the regulation of appetite and insulin secretion and a few other things. Now, it plays a really critical role in enhancing insulin secretion from the pancreas, and it can really help contribute to feelings of satiety, which means fullness. We don't have enough time to go through a whole talk on this right now, but you can do your research. There's many available, informational guides online on GLP-1s. In weight management, GLP-1s have been shown to help reduce body weight because they decrease how much food you eat, they help you feel more full, and they have metabolic effects in the body. Here's where behavior change comes into this. Okay, I am not saying don't take GLP-1s. I am not saying that they can't be an effective tool in your tool belt for weight loss. But you taking a medication will not change your mindset about your body. You taking a medication will not change your mindset about behavior. Taking a medication is not going to directly influence how you feel about certain habits in your life or direct you at all in the change process. If you look on any website, any pharma website that, any pharmaceutical company that's producing GLP-1s, I'll actually applaud them because many of them are including little paragraphs that say, you should take this in addition to making sustainable changes to your lifestyle habits. Because in the long term, right, you have to think about, what am I going to do, not only for my weight, but for my physical and mental well-being? Increasing your physical activity levels, stopping eating processed foods, lowering your intake of saturated fats, increasing your fruit and vegetable consumption. These are the things that are going to have more robust and long-term changes to our metabolic health over time. They are much more sustainable, because when you stop taking the GLP-1, the effects of the GLP-1 stop. If you exercise and you build exercise habits over time, and again, oh, people, yes, not every physical activity is a habit. I said that at the beginning, but I just feel the comment section of some behavioral scientists right now. They like itch to say when something is not a habit. I'm sometimes one of them. But if you build these habits and these patterns over time, right, that's going to help you in the long term. That is going to be your way to maintain weight loss long term. So, I'm not going to come out and say don't take GLP-1s. I'm going to say that there are sustainable behavioral changes that you can make to take control of your metabolic health that are going to help you significantly in the long term.
It kind of goes full circle with what we've been talking about. It, in some instances, maybe people incorrectly might view it as a kind of convenience thing, right? Oh, I can do this instead of this. But that's not actually the
Yeah.
truth. You can use it. Like we said, we've been speaking about like using tools. We spoke about like your watch that can track your steps. Like I would consider thinking of GLP-1s in a similar vein, except it's just a
Mhm.
biological tool versus an actual like physical tech tool as well. But you still need
Right.
to have that framework that when you gave the example a while ago, you still need to create that foundation as well to in order to be like truly successful and probably truly happy, right? I think if you're putting all
Yeah.
your energy on these GLP-1s are going to like do everything for me, you're not actually really working on your own self-development as much.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And again, it's all about context, right? Your doctor may decide that, hey, GLP-1s are actually not right for you at this time in your life. There are many factors that go into that. And you also have to decide, have you tried to lose weight with lifestyle change and a healthy approach to lifestyle change? If the answer is yes, 1 in 5 people with obesity have tried to lose weight through lifestyle change 20 or more times. Okay. There are significant amounts of people who have tried over and over again, and it's been ineffective. We would not hold back medications for people with diabetes, right? We wouldn't say, nah, you can't get this insulin because you could exercise more. We would never say that. And we shouldn't say that to people with obesity if there is a medication that can help them and it is right for their personal circumstances. However, there are many people who have not yet initiated, healthy approaches, effective approaches to behavior change, or given them a try. And those people might consider, hey, I'm going to try this first and see if some of these, more natural lifestyle-based changes can work for me before I go to GLP-1s. That's a conversation to have with your doctor, and of course, to consider your personal circumstances. If you are Yeah. Okay. I'll just say I was in my hair salon the other day, and I heard a group of women who were, by my observation, very average, normal weight. By my visual observation, did not have significant overweight or obesity, and we're talking about buying Ozempic and buying these drugs to help them get a six pack. That's not something I'm going to endorse by any means, and I think is quite dangerous in many, many ways. I'm happy to go on the record saying
Oh,
that.
Casey,
Um,
you timed out.
oh,
If you want to jump back in, 1 second now. You are back in three, two, and one.
okay, I'm back.
Welcome back.
So what I was saying is, that's not something I'll endorse. That could actually be very dangerous if you are, using Ozempic or some of these other medications off label to, um, you know, define your body or, look better aesthetically. I don't think that's a reason to be doing it. And it actually can, from a public health standpoint, reduce the availability of medication that's available for people with chronic disease who really need it.
Yeah, I think that's such a salient point to make as well. You have to maybe understand the motives as to why you want to use this tool as well.
Right. Absolutely.
Casey, just to wind down, I'd love to just look ahead with you and dive into what excites you the most about the future of health technology and behavioral science.
Yeah. There is so much I am excited for. Personally, I'm really interested in the intersection of mindset and habits, how we think about change. I'm about to launch some research, as I mentioned, a few studies coming up that I'm just really excited about. But most importantly, where I want to get to in my career is developing apps, developing technology that personalizes behavior change experiences to the point where you are given sound guidance based on your unique needs, your unique circumstances, the things that you like, the things that you don't like, and using technology to get you back into your life. I will never design a piece of technology that defaults you or tricks you or forces you to be in the app for hours and hours. I will put this on record. I will never take part in designing experience that wants you to scroll for 3 hours a day. I want to design health technology that says, hey, Casey, here's some things that you could work on to be more immersed in your social life, that can help you be more physically active, that can help you love yourself a little bit more, that can help you get out into the world, into nature, and feel joy and experience life and serve others. That's the kind of technology I want to design and that I will be designing. And I explicitly reject the behavioral science that is being used for the opposite. There's a lot of behavioral science out there that is being used to personalize experiences to a point where they are identifying what keeps you hooked, what raises your dopamine and keeps you so hooked that you will come back over and over again and spend hours in the app so that you get exposed to hours of ads and they'll get paid more and the company will get paid more. I reject that and I won't take part in it. I want to design health technology. I want to design behavior change experiences that help you be more you, help you find yourself again, to find love and joy and happiness and respect and caring and security and all of the things that make us human and make us enjoy life and get to our 80s and 90s and look back and say that was a life well lived. That's my goal.
Yeah, I can definitely speak on behalf of Noon Vibe and everyone listening here. I think we're really kind of proud and I guess honored to have someone like you in that space as well, because you can just see by that talk, right, that your passion and your heart is in the right place as well.
Thank you.
Casey, where can people find you or keep up with your work?
Oh, good question. So I am here on Noom Vibe under the Mastery Lab. You can find me, follow along. I took a break this week because of some family stuff, but I usually come on every Tuesday. I also kind of just started an Instagram, and I'll be honest, because of, life. I have 2 young kids and I work full time. I don't go on all the time, but I try to post some content, some helpful content when I can. My Instagram handle is Coach Casey H. So if you'd like to follow along there, you can. And, if there's anything that I talked about today that people are generally interested in, even professionally, you can find me on LinkedIn as well. I always am open to professional connections on LinkedIn. So I would say those are the 3 places right now that we could get connected.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Like, Casey, absolute pleasure. I would just say that this conversation went exactly how I thought it would. I knew there was going to be
Good.
so much information. I knew there was going to be so much interaction from our people on Noon Vibe as well, and I personally got so much out of it. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes, it was an honor to be here. And, I'll just close out by saying, if you are listening to this, if you showed up for yourself today and listened to this podcast episode, you should clap yourself on the back because every step forward is progress. You don't need to win to make progress. You don't need to hit your goals every single day to make progress. You just got to show up for yourself, and that's what matters.
Perfect way to end it. Casey, thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
All right,
Thank you.
take care. And thank you so much, folks. Take care. And I will be back with you again tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern time. Bye now.